Every now and then during this series, when I'm playing with all these different teams, I find a team that I start to get attached to and I start to play a bunch of matches with, and the 06 Heat were definitely one of those squads. So on Twitter, before I ever used them, I had people saying that you're gonna love the 06 Heat and it's gonna be a lot of fun. And to be honest, I was overlooking this squad because they've been in the game since, it was about 2K16, correct? Yeah, I think they added them in 2K16. And they were in my association, but they were really easy to beat. And I noticed they were missing a couple of players, and they were bringing in those generic guys off the bench. And I believe one of the guys they were missing was James Posey. So because of that, I was kind of discouraged from using them because, you know, I was like, I don't really just want to use Dwayne Wade and Shaq. And upon using this team, they became one of the squads that I can use over and over again. So where I said the Suns were one of my favorite teams to play with, yeah, they were cool and all, but I'm not going to use them a lot because I didn't really like their lack of defense. But the Heat are one of those teams that after I get done with this series, I'll go back and run a few games with them in a row because I like them that much. So this is one of the, I don't want to say most iconic teams during the 2000s because they were teams that accomplished more, but for their time they were really popular. And I think people forget that this was actually the second time that this team was trying to go for a championship, because in their first year together when Shaq came to Miami, I believe they were eliminated by Detroit. So the 06 Heat specifically, they won 52 games, they ranked 7th in offensive rating, 9th in defensive rating. And it was so interesting because I remember that year when they made the finals, when they went down 0-2, I think generally people thought that it was finally Dallas' time to win. They had already been good for a while. This was like prime Dirk Nowitzki when he was just amazing. And Miami just didn't seem like they stood much of a match. And then they came back and ran off 4 straight. And I was a kid when that happened, but I still remember watching it. Now, of course, this team is surrounded by a ton of controversy where people think they were rigged and that they weren't actually supposed to win that finals because Dwayne Wade was getting every call. So there's videos about that. We've all heard about it. So with this team, I'll say that if you haven't used Dwayne Wade and Shaq in 2K, then you're missing out, because I know everybody wants to use Kobe and Shaq, but this team is built pretty nice. I'll say from the 8 games that I played with him that Dwayne Wade is definitely one of my favorite players that I've actually used in this game. So you've heard me say that about Dirk Nowitzki, Larry Bird, and so I think Dwayne Wade makes 3 because if I can remember correctly, I don't think I've named a specific player, but I really like Wade because he's kind of a unique style in this game. Most of the players that you use can shoot threes, and that includes the other 2 players I was talking about. And with Wade, you might get lucky every now and then and hit a 3 with him, but that's not his specialty. So for him, you've got to use moves getting to the rim, and you've got to kill from mid-range. And as you see in this gameplay, I did hit a 3 from the corner with him, but most of the time I was getting to the rim using pick and rolls, and his moves that allow you to do that are really just deadly, and that makes him really fun to play with. The other thing that makes this really fun to play with is that you have Shaq down there with him. And that gets really fun because especially when you're doing the pick and roll, you have Shaq to do that with. Now, this is the worst Shaq in the game because they have the one from the Lakers and the Magic. So with him declining, he's not the best one. He was only averaging 20 points a game by this time, but don't let that fool you because he's still way bigger than most centers in the game. So I think in one of the games I played, I was matched up against the 80s Bucks, and I destroyed that guy with Shaq because they didn't really have a sizable center. And you can do that with a lot of the guys that he matches up with. So he may not be as young and spry as the one on the Magic or even as dominant as the one on the Lakers, but you can still get people pinned under the basket, and he has an unstoppable dunk animation once he gets under there. So I'm going to try to edit some of the Bucks footage in here because if I can remember correctly, I basically beat that guy with Shaq by himself. And while the dunk animation may seem kind of unfair, you know, when you think about it in real life, if you have 7 foot 300 pound Shaq under the rim, all he has to do is rise up and dunk it. So I will say, yeah, that can definitely kind of seem like an exploit, but you know, whatever, it's there, I'm just putting it out there. But now for what I dislike about this team. The one thing I hated about the Miami Heat, and it's kind of unique to them, is that their shooters, they are so streaky from game to game. So you'll have one game like the gameplay I'm showing you guys where everyone's knocking down their shots. Dwayne Wade knocks down a 3 from the corner, you got Jason Williams going, Antoine Walker can hit it, James Posey with his terrible 2K release can still make some, but then you'll have games where you just can't hit anything, and that's a problem because like I said, Dwayne Wade is fun to play with, he's unique, but that lack of a 3-point shot can hurt spacing. So when you have guys like Williams and Walker and Posey and whoever else is sitting on the 3-point line, you really need them to make their shots when they get them. And what I found from the games I played with is like either they're on or they're off. And the games that they're off, they are really miserable to play with, because then you kind of resort to trying to do everything with Dwayne Wade and Shaq. And when they start packing the paint against those guys, it can really get miserable to try to get a win with this team. And it's weird because this is different from the actual problem with the game. So you've heard me mention this as recently as the O2 Kings, where I really didn't like their shot making ability, but with the Heat, they have that shot making ability, and when they're on, they're damn near unbeatable. But yeah, just know that sometimes you're gonna get into a game and those guys just are not gonna make anything for whatever reason. And that's the difference, because with other teams it's consistent. So when I was playing with the Kings, it was consistent that they were streaky every game. And with whatever other teams I play with, where I just feel like that's a problem with 2K in general, where you can't make open shots, it's really consistent with every team. And so far, the 06 Heat are the first team I found where it just seems to vary from game to game and you just can't tell why. But despite that, they're really fun to play with, and I'm glad that this isn't one of the rosters that they have where they're just lacking a lot of important pieces, because they're all there. So they were missing Posey in 2K16, but they've added him here, and when he is hitting his shots, he's very valuable. And it's also cool to have Payton and Mourning coming off the bench. Now, of course, they're very washed up, so this Payton isn't even as good as the one that you have on the 04 Lakers, I believe. And then, of course, Alonzo Mourning, you know, he's good at defense. That's the thing. His offense is completely diminished by the time he's on the 06 Heat, but his defense off the bench is very valuable. And the only complaint I have with him is, why does he still have his hair? This man did not have a speck of hair by the time he was on the Miami Heat in 06. That's just pure laziness by 2K, but now I'm just nitpicking. I'm glad that this team has an entire second unit that you can run, because there's a lot of classic teams on here where your starting shooting guard might end up being your backup point guard. And being able to switch between Jason Williams and Payton and Udonis Haslem and Alonzo Mourning, it's pretty cool, because you might run into situations where it could benefit you to have Mourning and Shaq down low together for defense. Of course, on offense, that's a complete space killer, but on defense, that's a really good combination if you do find somebody who's running 2 big men, which is kind of rare in this game anyway, so I'm not sure that matters much. Anyways, that's what I've got to say about the 06 Heat. Very fun team to run with. Just know that if you do use them consistently, that shooting is eventually going to frustrate you, because you never know when they're on and you never know when they're off, so just be warned of that. Hit the like button, comment, and sub if you enjoyed, and hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications on future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys with the next team.